Hello, today we are in Trossingen and I have a big pleasure to meet with Professor Teddy Ezra, who is specialist from the early music, especially clarinets. Hello.
Welcome to Trossingen, welcome to Germany. I wish we had a better weather, but it's good weather to practice and to explore because outside is just plain dull, grey and cold.
So, can you tell me more about the early music, when you started your fascination about that? So, some story, how it began for you.
Like I guess 98.9% of the people I came to Trossingen, the same Hochschule that I'm now teaching at, for the modern studies basically. And there was what's called Alte Musik or period instrument department here, but there was no clarinet at the time that I came. And my personal first encounter with the historical clarinet happened as soon as I finally managed to get my own set of buffet festivals. The first one I ever owned that was from the beginning mine. And as the wedding went away, a couple of weeks after the wedding, so to say, I've discovered that although there are really great instruments, were and are still great instruments for me on playing modern, I found out that I have some difficulties and issues with the instruments. They're not resonating the way that I wish. And I expressed this to a colleague of mine, and not noticing, there was a very old guy looking at me and listening very, very, very well. He claimed he never studied English, but I guess he wanted to stay like a bit of a spy, and that was Rudolf Tutz, of which we see here. These instruments are copies made by Rudolf Tutz Senior from Innsbruck. And he just approached me and he said, "You know what are you doing next weekend?" And I said, "I'm still free." I said, "Jump in on a train to Innsbruck, to my shop, and I'll fix your clarinets."
Wow.
And I looked like that, and I didn't know who this guy is. He noticed that I'm a bit off, naturally, being third semester I was. In Germany, my German was not as good as, and anyhow it wouldn't help because he was speaking plainly Innsbrucker, which is a dialect which nobody understands other than people in Innsbruck. But he said, I'm the husband of Linde Brunmeier Tutz, who's the Prorektorat here in Hochschule, and a Traversflutist, a fantastic one I recommend to hear if possible. And basically he said, I'm her husband, don't worry. And I drove all night to Innsbruck on the train and arrived in the shop, and suddenly my eyes got bigger because this shop had clarinets, originals from the, so to say, earliest, like about 1780 to, I'd say, to the very modern basically. And he basically threw on the table a set of reeds in various sizes and strengths and said, "Go wild."
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And I did. And it was very interesting. And actually building clarinet class in Trossingen happened while I was doing chamber music final exam. It's a part of the pedagogic part of the studies here in Trossingen at the time. And waiting in the room was my former professor for modern clarinet, Rena Levy, and Rudolf Tutz. And they were both smiling and were holding a towel. And I got really scared. But I got a very nice instrument, a basset clarinet with 12 keys, and I was told that I have 2 months to learn it by myself as part of being one of the top 5 students at the time. That was kind of a challenge. And I performed until by the end, I performed the first 2 movements of the Mozart Clarinet Quintet. Later on, it was told me that because it worked so well, that they decided to bring first my former teacher here for historical clarinet, Ernst Schlaber, who's now in Österreich teaching, And then started here at Historical Clarinet Institute. So that's a kind of a funny story.
Wow, wow, really
yeah.
nice, really nice.
Yeah, and as I said, we have here, these are copies. These are from Rudolf Tutz. And in the end, we have two original 1840s plus minus. We don't have serial numbers like we have today that we can accurately say exactly when. But according to the mechanic, because it has some features which are very interesting, like mutant clarinet, Albert Reis and I was a quite an important musicologist all regarding instruments. It's a name worth mentioning, and a very kind person. He answers my emails like in 4 a.m. and stuff like that. It's a really true artist in his field, I'd say. He estimated that at around 1840s, in a very old-fashioned way of building. That's a different thing. We can talk about maybe the role of tradition. So people were not like today, we want the newest thing. People had what they like and felt comfortable with, and were not always so happy to switch. And it's also to see the difference. We have here a 5-key C clarinet made by Tutz.
So which kind of music you can...
So this is basically what's called the classical period, is 5 and 6 keys. The 6 key is from Lefebvre, who has a very important method book for us. And he basically gave us the pleasure of playing a G sharp and a second G sharp and a C sharp one, which makes life very easy, because until then we have to use basically blocking. So if I want to play a D sharp, I have to do this. If I have to play a C sharp, I have to do this, and putting my tongue on the reed. So there was a lot of issues totally playing it with halftone in chromatic form. But, so you'd say, you have issues, so why not the modern? It's a bit like the natural horn. So you have sounds which are hidden and sounds which are very direct. Now Mozart, when he heard the clarinets, where he wrote, "Oh Father, if we had clarinets, he was referring to this instrument, not necessarily this one, but this sort of an instrument.
So I mean with the
5 keys, with the 5 keys, and so he was very well aware of the good qualities and the bad qualities of the instruments. Typical, very annoying to me now, was not disturbing so much before. Again, alte music is all about awareness. Awareness for the technique of the past, awareness where the manuscripts comes from, awareness to the articulation that was used in the time, awareness to the cadences form that were built in the time. A lot about rubato, taking time, not playing metronomically, or taking into consideration that first in Beethoven's time we have metronome markings which we use until today, but the metronome in Beethoven's time was very inaccurate and very not reliable, and towards the end Beethoven also kind of disqualified it. Brahms said it cannot show the real feeling of the heart. So all of this, the composer knew exactly which instrument am I composing for, and the lack of what we called totally intonated the same sound that we are unfortunately, and I say unfortunately, searching for when we play modern, to make everything ausgeglichen, everything the same. Everything has to sound same. My F and my C should be from the sound, the same brilliance, the same power, the same equality. This is something which is stylistically just wrong. I know it's a concept that we have at some point to break, and there is a possibility to a certain extent also to break also from this way, also by modern playing, and to a certain extent. Anyhow, the halftone, not good tones, so to say, if you may. They sound a bit like hidden, like in a natural trumpet or a natural horn mostly, and they play a role. If we talk about Mozart and concerto, we have da di da ti da di da di da di 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 da. Everybody knows a couple of good recordings of modern players, and you hear da di da ti da di da di da di da da da. Where is the key for that? And that's just very simple. I mean, everybody who's doing a little bit of alto music knows it, because I have to, for the C, I have to have half a vowel, and for C bemol, I have to do gabel, which is not a good intonated tone, which I have to lower, unfortunately, with this and tongue. So what you get, da di da ti da da, a bit like natural horn. And that was the joke. That's why Mozart used it. So now we're doing everything totally different than what was expected to be done. The other thing is these instruments are made from Buchsbaum. They're much lighter, naturally less keys. So it's much easier to hold. Every conservatory teaches the children you have to have 45 degrees and do this and do that. But if you look in illustration over a period of time, you see basically that most of them were holding a bit higher, actually, more like an oboe. And this is really easily done because it's not, the weight is not, it's not such an issue.
Yeah, it's really light.
And basically, by changing the wood later on to Grenadille or Black African or Corcovado or whatever there was, they were experimenting, basically it became heavier. What happens is that everything drops.
Oh, that's really
And it's actually not so easy to blow in. I mean, you can try, everybody just next to the wall, standing up and picking up the clarinet. Okay, not for a very long time because it's heavy, but you'll see that you feel much easier all regarding, pushing the airflow. These instruments are basically built for sound colors. It's not built for power. It's built for sound colors. The whole idea of intonation is not the intonation per se, like we put the tuner and we say, okay, it's on the green. We analyze it on the point. Sometimes it can be off, but still right. So it's a matter of colors. We don't take intonation per se, frequency-wise, like what happens nowadays. Our pianos are also differently tuned. Depends if there's a quint part. There's a whole issue regarding that. Anyhow, intonation and tuning is a very big issue in alto music. So all of this stuff together creates a totally different experience. It's not like we're just trying in a cheap way to imitate the way of the past, which is also nice because everybody likes theater and some drama and some stories behind. Everybody likes that. But we are trying to kind of delve into the conditions and gaining musical ideas and better musical understanding of the pieces that we are playing. In that aspect, I'm not a total period instrument fanatic. I don't think that the modern clarinet is an abomination. I think you can make a very good compromising. You can also take a lot of the stuff that we are talking about into the modern way of playing. Not all, and if you really want to experience, that's at least happens in Trossingen. I'm very thankful to my former professor that he's pushing people to make at least 2 semesters, what's called with us Wahlmodul or secondary instrument, and they get instruments from the school here, and they experiment with that because you just get smarter. The idea is always being aware. Getting more sources, why am I doing stuff? Another thing, all of my students, if there is a possibility of getting a hold of the manuscript, they have to play from the manuscript. Like we have a different approach all regarding what's called by Baron Reiter or Henley Urtext, the original text. Somebody's actually sitting down, usually musicologists who's doing that and give you kind of a final product. But we encourage you to think for yourself. We encourage you to have principles and ideas and about performing any sort of genre that we are experimenting with, and that takes quite a lot of time. So we divide the time a bit differently also it's not only get in the room, play it in intonation, in tempo. You also have to do, to a certain extent, also research, get the manuscript, compare. For example, if you have, for example, Henry did quite a nice job in the late times, and they give you the original, for example, Weber concertos. You have the original Weber, and you have the Karl Bergmann version, and on top of all, which was nice, I think it's a very nice idea for the future in all verlag or printing editions. They should say what's their idea, where it's whoever Mr. or Mrs. Musicologists think about this and this and this. They should put a star and let the player do the work. We shouldn't play automatically. I think it's sometimes what often disturbs me in the live concerts that I hear. Everything starts to sound the same. A funny thing which is very parallel to modern music is there's a lot of rules, stylistic rules you shouldn't break, or if you break, you should better have a good reason. And that actually corresponds quite a lot with what's called contemporary music nowadays, because it's very strict about the rules, what they want. And this is very funny. This is something I'm also very passionate about. Actually, when I won the Baden-Württemberg Kunststiftung Prize, or it's for all of the county of Baden-Württemberg, it was actually for people composing for these instruments, modern music. And why? They are so much more flexible in the sound. Like if we think about a modern clarinet playing quarter tones or even less and stuff like this. This happens here from alone. Here you try to control them. So there's or frullato here, it's so much more resonant and it's not so powerful, and the German would say shrill, very direct and very to the ear directly. And it actually, and in Michaelstein, that was a course done all in focus on Chalumeau. I had the pleasure to talk about new music for early instruments, and especially for the Chalumeau. And my sister and I, we performed both different pieces written for us, for this instrument, as part of our way also to enlarge the pieces for this instrument. There are still a lot of archives to go through, getting more. This is another thing. We work with archives. We try to get stuff which hasn't seen the day of light for a couple of good 100 years, and try to bring it back, if possible. Time limitation and so forth. So this is a lot of what we do.
Okay. Here. And in your opinion, what is the biggest difference if you would like to play, for example, Fantasistica by Schumann for our normal modern instrument and on the historical clarinet? What is the biggest difference in the interpretation or some like technical issues?
The amount of stress that you have to push the air into the instrument, it's like a quarter.
Okay.
I mean, if you play well and you don't take also the breaks, the Fantasistück can really take a hit at you. Interval playing is much easier. You don't have to push. There are some certain effects that happens in this clarinet. It goes from alone. Let's see if I'm getting this. For example, I'll go back to the Fantasistück, but a good example would be if I play Beethoven on 5 keys.
Okay.
What happens to a lot of water do we hear? But here it goes from alone. I don't have to work for that. So the resonance works in that way that the sound goes away, a bit more like in Hammerflügel. So you press and it goes from alone away, and it has its own rhythm. It changes the colors differently.
You know, it sounds really easy, but it's not.
It's not easy, but there are some stuff.
I know. But when you play as well, it looks really easy, and so that's surprising, you know. It's a practice I tend to do a lot with students. Is like trying not to push. So
it comes also from Alexander technique, but the main idea is the difference is that we don't have to bite so much. We are all searching for harder reeds, bigger, more open mouthpieces, stability. Stability comes in a price.
Yes, and create all the time really dark, beautiful, warm sound, but sometimes it's really hard.
But
to
one,
force.
but one, and you cannot change it. And that's if you ask me what I wish, we were talking about this last time when I met you in Vigo, is to sit with Selma really and try to get some of these effects back to action. I mean, there was a very nice attempt from Buffet to do now boxwood clarinet, but the boxwood clarinet, by the way, the main reason moving from boxwood to any other kind of wood is actually purely instrument making. It has nothing to do with the people. Boxwood being so light and so soft, it changes the intonation very fast. So it gets warmer very fast and it gets colder very fast, which of course impacts intonation.
Of course, yes.
Like playing Missa Solemnis or Missa in C from Beethoven in Berlin in January in the main dome. It's cold like hell. So you know that when you play your solo with this A clarinet, it was sitting like 3 hours on a stand. You have to really bite your teeth out more or less to get it intonated in a proper way. So this is one thing. The second thing is that it demands a lot of care compared with the modern. So it needs oiling. So it needs to be cleaned. There's a lot of issues, not a lot, but could create issues because of these kind of pins. We don't have, don't know if you see it, but pins, we have pins, we don't have screws. Screws are making everything fast. Putting it all together. So according to weather could also change. And the last one is, last but not least, cracks. So I have a lot of organs. These are perfect condition because they've not been played so much. I feel it when I play them, and you will feel it later when you try them. But I have a lot of originals that have serious cracks. Now it's a different theory. You know, your people are so afraid of cracks. I got a crack.
Yes, that's true.
And a lot of people are saying, "Oh, the instrument doesn't sound the same. It's not anymore like this." Blah 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 blah. Blah. I'm sorry to say it, but a crack happens when there's a lot of pressure on the wood, and if the wood is so pressured and it cracks, it actually releases. With a very good reparation, shouldn't be a problem, unless it really hits every single. I saw it only once, I think, from here through all of these down. So that basically the whole part, basically. So this is like an extreme version. But here and there, 1, 2, 3, 4, even 16 cracks in not important places, when are well treated, they don't play a very big role. It's mostly in the head. And I have many of them. I play them a lot. For example, I have a Bertolt Speyer set, fantastic with a lot of cracks, even with one ring completely broken. So. They wanted stability, they wanted less reparation, they wanted a bigger sound, they wanted, so to say, more intonation. People don't know that, for example, but the 5-keys clarinet stayed the longest in all periods of clarinets. In England, in the mid-19th century, was still played 5-keys clarinets. We have, and to a certain extent, with a reed up. Still reed up, not down.
Yeah, and maybe can you tell something more about the ligature, because it's completely different.
So ligature we tend to use what's called waxed string. It's basically a string put into wax. They did it in the time with candle, but this one is already naturally industry produced. I'm not doing it myself. Too much time consuming for other reasons. But we use this, and it's still used in Germany quite a lot, also in modern orchestras. The great effect of it is it pretty much evenly divides the pressure on the reed. There are many techniques to put it. I tend to put this one in the middle of the reed and then do that. And in the end, I do a loop, so I can basically accordingly adjust and match.
Yeah.
And from time to time you check this one.
Mm-hmm.
Ivan Müller is responsible for the legature. We don't know exactly when, but 1812 there's already Ivan Müller, so I would assume plus minus until the 1815, 16 there are already legatures also for metal. I have some originals at home. Some of them are marvelous. It's incredible. I mean, we take this for granted now because there's a lot of industry made for that. But for the time being, every single one of them is so beautifully manufactured. It's an art. You get again more sustained pressure on the reed, and therefore more stability in the sound production. But you lose the way of the sound going away and the sound colors. So there's a plus and minus like everything in life.
Of course.
There's unfortunately it didn't happen to me, it happened to Sabine Meyer. I have actually no idea how you say it in English, the Nichte. Somebody in the line of Spohr himself gave a set of clarinets from Spohr time to Sabine Meyer, from all of the people who's not really a great fan of alto music. But and it was very interesting. I can show you the picture later. The mouthpiece was totally gold.
Wow.
The barrel was ivory. The clarinet was already black with 14 keys, and the bell was and everything, of course, ivory rings, and the keys were silver. So if you were a great artist at the time, you got something like this, something very special. Now it's known that Spohr's clarinetist Helmut was very hard staccato, had a very hard staccato and very fast one. And that explains already immediately why. Because if you have a metal mouthpiece, you get a hard staccato. So all of this small stuff, you know, it's like small informations that can help you out when you play Spohr. When I played for my final exam the Spohr first on 12 keys, I was missing 2. Now I know. I don't think that it's much easier with 2 more keys, but it's nice to know. Just also regarding articulation, it's a very important fact for us. We don't have one staccato. We have different ways of approaching staccato, from very soft to the very. We use syllables, for example. Kranz talks about this equal 16ths. We don't do equal 16ths. A lot of stuff like that makes you actually be more free when you play.
So, what impact is for modern playing or using modern clarinet when you play as well early clarinet?
So let's take this one out, right off the bat away, and that's, of course, we need possibilities. We want also to earn money. That's one thing, and this genre is catching up now. I got now the romantic period is now very much in trend. I just did a lot of romantic, whether it was Brahms, Bruckner, Wagner. For example, I just got an A clarinet Sauerhering, which I'm now overhauling for this 435. It's a Magdeburger. It's perfect for Wagner. And again, Wagner states he would like to have 435 as a pitch, and that's the best pitch. It's also a very different issue. But the instruments play totally different. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean that I don't like modern clarinet. I do play modern clarinet equally, if not. It depends on periods. Sometimes this more. There's no law to it. It depends on projects.
But it's really hard to play like style in early music playing on the modern clarinet, you know, because we spoke as well about the keys, about the different quality of the sound, and about everything. So how do you see that?
I think to a certain extent, and that's the point, to a certain extent you can do some of the early music work when you do the modern. For example, manuscript. How many people work with manuscript? We buy the arranged music from a shop,
yes, from
and we just play, and then we count on our teacher to tell us what to do. to a certain extent is of course also great for the teachers, but the idea is that whenever you play something, be aware you have to make an aware decision about your musicality. And if your teacher is secure enough and honest enough, and the student is honest enough and has no fear about asking questions, both sides get a lot out of this, because I have students who ask me why, and you have to give them sources why. Because Leopold Mozart said that tone is above all. Because we discussed this that Lafèvre talks in the Methode that ornamentation should not be interrupting the main idea of the phrase, and shouldn't be too hectic or too technically difficult for the piece. It should pass the character of the piece. Also, the question is, and that's very important, is simplicity and complexity in performance. How much do we put in our thumb, so to say, on technique, and how much do we talk about musicality? And that is something that accompanies us in the Alte Musik quite a lot, because there's both ways. If you look at, like Josef Joachim, he says, let's come from the idea back to the technique. He was a great techniker and has a great school. And we have Lafèvre, who says simplicity. Simplicity first. After that, pass the technique to the simplicity. So you have many sources. You can also say, I believe more that way, I believe more that way. So there is a room for you as an artist to grow. That's the most important. I don't want my students at any point to do because I said so. I want them to teach them principles, not to teach them what to do. They should do the thinking themselves, if possible.
And do you recommend to every clarinet players or students especially that they should try those kind of clarinets?
Yes, because it opens the mind to a different set of sound. Again, I think also today the modern clarinets don't use really the whole potential of the clarinet.
What do you mean exactly?
That there are more sounds to achieve with the modern. I know, because I sat with all of Toots, and you tried my modern ones, and they do sound different. They have certain aspects from historical and folk performance in them. Now,
So
I'm not assuming
improvement.
I don't know if it's improvement. Again, it's stuff that were important for me as an artist. Again, and this is something that we unfortunately we are living in a consumer kind of society, and everybody wants to sell clarinets, and everybody would like also to have a model so we can mass product. All of these originals, they were handmade, crafted for certain individual. When you see it in the way that the fingers are being made, so sometimes you see it's too small, it's not for me, too big. Now it's quite long ago now. Rudolf Dutz was invited. They founded in Constance a bassophone which was for left-handed, so the mechanic was upside down. So the instruments were tailor-made, like a good suit or like a good dress. It was made for you. It was made for me. So it passes much more. It's not there was a model. Yeah, they costed like that also. Like a bassophone would cost like one year of minister. The Minister of Finance at all. It's quite a lot. That's why some of the originals are in very good conditions and still can be repaired and brought again to life, because it's a different way. It's not mass production.
Okay.
Of course, mass production makes it easier to change parts, to have screws, to have everything, but it has the disadvantages. And one of them, as I honestly think that, because you also see it, let's say, in the fashion. Now everybody plays Lacostini for mouthpiece. I keep hearing Lacostini is the best, Lacostini is the best. Like, and before that there was something else the best. And,
of
before
course,
that
like
there was something else the best.
And
I think this is a very important sign that there is a real lack of inspiration. people are just selling the instruments they are, and that's why we see today between the German and the French system, for example, there's not much difference. If I play a German mouthpiece on my buffet, a lot of people, let's say, I would say 99.9% will assume it's a German. So the mouthpiece plays much bigger role in modern than actually the clarinet in itself. This is a different issue. It doesn't matter which mouthpiece, they will change of course with the mouthpiece, but it will still be very individual sound. I never seen two instruments from the same. I have from Bertolt Speyer a set of books and a set of Grenadier, and they sound totally different. And I have from the books wood and the C clarinet two with the same system. It also sounds different. So basically every instrument was individually crafted, and therefore, even if using the same technique, the same way of building, produces a totally different experience.
Yes, especially when we add as well individuals like a clarinet player, so we have completely different.
Of course, and also where you're coming from, what's the tradition, you know. There's a way of playing in the Böhmische part, there's a Wiener art, there's quite an interesting, the influence of players themselves, whether it was Fridlowski for Beethoven, of course Stadler for Mozart, everybody knows, and again, the instrument makers, Lotz and Griesbacher, for example, which are very famous for producing the wonderful Viennese way of making instruments, they're both players. They played actively. It's not only I make the instrument, they were players. So they were like masters in every field you want to have. They were composer partially. So there was not like subdivision like we have now. A composer is a composer, he's not touching anything instrumentalistically. Or some today only sit in front of Sibelius, they don't even use a piano. So it's a problem. It's a problem for me. The music also becomes more and more computerized. If this is the way we want to go, that's a different question. It's a good question. Again, and they were composing, they were building instruments, they were performing. They had inside knowledge. Why? If I come to an instrument maker and I say this doesn't work for me, why? And how many times I met people who represent different kind of very big firms, and I looked at the instrument and I said, what is this? And it says, this is model whatever. I said, no, I tried this model in the shop, but it was not like that. So again, for specific people we do, and for some other not. So there I hit on the point that, you know, even industrialized, if we are already going in that direction, then make it fair. So let's say if Mr. X did the work and complain about certain aspects, the film should do accordingly. And not saying, okay, for him it's okay, but our model will not include this because it's more machinery, it just costs more. All this stuff costs more, and art, unfortunately, and finance are never going together. Art is not a fabric where you mass produce dollars.
It's a different topic.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much. It was really interesting to hear about the interpretation, about the instruments, about the notes, how it looks like before, how it looks like now. So thank you very much for this interesting meeting.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. So I hope we encourage more people to try those beautiful instruments, and as well to see how big difference is when you play these early instruments comparing to the modern.